What's up everyone, and welcome to my channel VizCourse. I've got an awesome tutorial for you today. I've joined forces with Design Connected and I have created a tutorial to teach you how to use their amazing asset management tool called Connector. One tutorial that'll teach you everything that you need to know for the free version of Connector. We're going to dive through all the settings, we're going to dive through all the options, and we're going to dive through everything that you can do from Connector to Max, and then from Max back into Connector. So it's an awesome piece of software if you're very new to asset management and you're one of those artists that have everything just in chaos. You got all your assets split in 100 different folders and you have no idea where anything is. You're gonna need this app. It's gonna organize everything for you nicely and neatly, and I'm gonna show you everything that it can do. So the first thing that obviously that we need to do is, where do we download it? So this is the link right here, which I'll drop it into the description of the video. Grab it, hit download, and then from there we're going to install it together and we're going to run through everything and we're going to learn how to actually use this. Okay, so let's hit the download button, and while it's downloading you'll see that it's actually compatible with Max, Rivet, Cinema 4D, Rhino, Blender, Unreal, and even Maya. So very versatile program for you. In this tutorial I'll be using 3D Max. Okay, once it's downloaded, let's go to the download folder or wherever you downloaded the file, and all we're going to do is really just install it. Very simple. Okay, when we are here, we are going to double click it. Very simple, and all you need to do is just click next, click agree, click install, and it's as simple as that. So it's going to install it, and then what we need to do is just basically run it. Now you can create a shortcut on your desktop for easy access. Once you've created that, double click the shortcut key, and then let's launch straight into Connector. And then once you run it for the first time, the logo appears, and then it's going to ask us about a workspace. So for this tutorial we're going to click on personal, and as you can see I created a folder called workspace. I'm going to select that and say select folder. That's all that you have to do now. So workspace created successfully. So anything that we do now will get saved into that workspace. Click in the OK button, and then we're going to dive through everything that Connector has to offer. Okay, so this is telling us what is in the new release. We can press the X button, and then help us approve, anonymous usage statistics, yes, say send, or no, whichever one you're comfortable with. Okay, we are looking at Connector now, and as always whenever there's a new piece of software it's very overwhelming, but we're going to cover everything that you need to know, every setting and every tool here to help you organize your scenes perfectly. Okay, now that the introduction is out of the way, let's actually dive straight into this. Top left hand corner under edit we just have a undo and redo, very self-explanatory. Underneath tools, now we're going to dive into this menu a little bit later when we have a bit more experience using Connector. Next is integrations. Now if I click on integrations you can see that it's offering all of the actual installations for the software that you're using. The 3ds Max integration installer we don't need to use, because the best way to install the plugin is actually to drop an asset from Connector into Max and it actually automatically installs for you. Underneath that is dedicated 3ds Max. Now this is an important one. Underneath global auto setup, what we are doing here is we are choosing the 3ds Max that we want on our system for Connector to use in the background as an instanced host. The best thing to do is pick the latest version that you have. In the event that you are, let's say for example, using 2021 and you're trying to access a 2022 file, you're not going to be able to, or at least Connector won't be able to access that file. If you choose the latest version, then you know that there's not going to be any version issues. So I'm going to choose 2024, and as I click that it says starting 3ds Max global dedicated instance. Now what that means is 3ds Max version 2024 is going to be running in the background. Next we have is the custom preview generator. So if I click on that as well, let's go auto setup, and again make sure you use the latest version of Max. It'll make more sense when we start creating our own previews using Connector. And then again, custom preview dedicated instance. This might take a few moments. Okay, integrations is done. Let's dive into settings. Underneath settings we've got preferences. Most of them are very self-explanatory. For example, thumbnail size will obviously tell you the quality of the thumbnails. Use transparency in Lightbox. This one I'll show you with an example when we are saving JPEGs to PNGs. HDR lighting method when you're looking at your previews, so you can choose if you want to disable or enable it. HDR load mode, high or low resolution, auto hide custom previews. Now this is unticked. We're going to dive into this a little bit later as well. Search in image files keywords. Now this is unticked. If you are in a studio where you have a lot of photography going on, there's a lot of information that is stored in all of your photos. These we refer to as metadata, and a lot of the metadata will have keywords in them. This right here, by ticking this, will actually search the image and collect all of those keywords for you, and then later on you'll be able to use those keywords as tags. Now we're going to dive into what tags is. So if you are working in a studio that uses a lot of metadata inside all of your assets, then this will be useful for you. Show sample products. So if I just close this quickly here and go underneath window and click on products over there, we've got this tab right over here. If I go underneath settings and preferences and I untick that, that goes away. So we'll dive in a few seconds what that tab is for. Next we have asset types. Now if you activate asset types, you'll be able to see all of the assets that connector will read and understand. And as you can see, there's a lot. Now if you are specific in your actual assets, you can untick certain ones. For example, I know in my studio I don't really use any of these, so I can easily untick all of those, and then connector will not read any of those files. You can add an extension if there is an asset here that connector hasn't listed, and obviously it will pick it up for you. Let's close that. Underneath settings, we've got custom properties. Now, this is for connector server teams. So you'll see that there are a few options inside this connector free version that you will not be able to use, and that is exclusively for the connector server teams. So that one we don't need to worry about. Next we have window. Now underneath window, this is going to show us all of the tabs that connector has. So if I start at the very top, obviously the tick means that the tab is active, and if I tick and untick it, you'll see that it is this folder right over here. So folders window right over there. Productivity is going to be the bottom left side right over here where it's labeled tags, and we'll dive through all of these things a bit later. Next we have PBR material mixer. So if I activate that, you'll see that this window appears. Next we have previews vertical or previews horizontal. So if I click on horizontal, the horizontal preview window is right here. Switch it on and off. And then vertical. So you can see you can only have one of them. Only vertical or only horizontal. So whether you prefer a vertical or horizontal, it's your choice. Next is details, and that's this tab right over here. Again, we'll discuss that a bit later. And then finally, products. Now if I activate products, you got this list over here, which are design connected 3D models from their website. Untick these. And then of course help, anything that you need help with, you can dive through there. Okay, we've gone through the very simple interface. Let's actually start using the connector app now. So the first thing we need to do is actually add a folder for connector to read, and then from there we can organize the assets. So let's dive into the folder tab right over here and click this plus sign. Once that's loaded, select the folder that you want. So if I double click this folder, you'll see I've got all of these files organized into here. I'm going to select the root folder 3D models and click select folder. What it's done now is it's made a mirrored copy of it. So whatever I see over here, so if I click this little arrow down there, you're going to see all of these folders. Now all of these folders are identical to the folders in the Windows tab. Now it's really important to know that when you do make certain changes here in this connector, it is going to actually make the changes in your Windows directly as well. So really important to know that. So let's start at the very top. If I select the root folder, the first thing that you'll see is that it's completely empty over here. And that is because we have to click this arrow, and then we can go into each and every single folder that we want. So let's start at the very first one. And as you can see, we've got a JPEG, a PNG, we got a max file over here, and it's really awesome because have a look. It's picking up that it's max 2024. The CO stands for Corona Rendering Engine. I've got a Max 2021 over here. It's a VR, which is for V-Ray. I've got an HDRI image and then a PNG image. So immediately you can see, just by clicking on the folder, all of a sudden, we can see basically every single item that is inside here, and it is telling us what it is. Now what we can do over here, bottom right hand side, is that we can scroll to make the icons bigger or of course smaller. So let's start at the very first one. I'm going to click on the item JPEG, and as I click on it, you're going to see a whole bunch of information appear. Let's start on the right hand side. Now if you remember, underneath window, this is our previews vertical. So this is showing us a preview of the actual image. This tab over here is the details tab. So it's telling us the name, the type, when it was created, modified, even the file size. It's also telling us the location. Now if you click this little arrow right over there, you can copy the path to a clipboard. You can open it up directly in Explorer, which is really useful. So if I click on that, it'll open it up, taking me straight away to where that item is. So it's really, really useful. The last one, which is locating connector. If you have found the image using a search and you don't know where it is in connector, this one will take you directly to that folder. So we'll dive through that a little bit later. Image properties, of course, tells you the dimension, image aspect, the resolution, the bit depth. Productivity, feedback, version control, workflows takes you to the design connected website. Then under asset properties, we got ratings. Now ratings is reserved for connector server, and if you remember, that is the paid version, so we're not going to dive into that here. Tags, really awesome function. We will tackle that when we get to tags, but this is another area where you can see what tags are associated with any of the images. On the right hand side, we can type in a description. So we can call this render of lamp, for example. And then next, custom properties, get this feature with connected server. We don't need to worry about that. So that's under JPEG. If I double click it, it will obviously bring it up to full screen, which is really awesome. Next we have the PNG. Now the PNG is basically identical to the JPEG. It's going to tell us all of the information. If I double click the PNG, I'd like you to notice that as a natural PNG, it's technically cut out. And that's what that one setting was for. So if we go underneath settings and preferences, and where it says here use transparency in Lightbox, if I untick that, when I double click a PNG, you'll see that the background is solid. So just a reminder what that does for you. I prefer this ticked so I can see the PNG. Next is the max file. Now the first thing that we notice straight away is on the right hand side, the preview. The preview is telling us what map or texture is attached to the object. So in this instance we can see it's one item. So for example, if we had to go into another folder, so that's the Bahama Lounge chair. If we go underneath here and we select the max, you'll see two images appearing. So it's telling us that this particular model has two textures attached to that. If we carry on looking now at the bottom over here under file properties, we've got a couple of new features. So we've got the file properties, which we've gone through: file size, file name, location, the 3D Max properties, which is awesome. It's even telling you how many vertices and faces there are, amazing, how many lights are in the scene as well, and if there are any cameras. Bitmaps, now if I click on here, so remember, if it's highlighted in this blue-green color, it'll actually be a link. So if I click on here, it's going to take me and basically isolate what material or textures are used for this object. Clicking this little button here, we'll just go one back, almost as if it's in a window browser. And speaking of window browser, you'll see here, this is the location of this actual file. So for example, I can come right here, I can even right click and say copy, and that address I can paste in a Windows tab, and then it'll take me straight there. Next over here is manage files. Now this is a really awesome function. This is going to allow you to actually manage the files that are associated with the max file. So if I click on manage files over here, it is immediately telling us what texture is actually on this item. Now it's given us more information than just that. What it's telling us is the file name, as you can see right over there. We've got a preview, we've got the type, the status, the path, and then of course if something is missing or broken or it cannot be found, this is going to tell us everything we need to know. So I've already set an example up for us, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a few folders over here. So this folder over here, if I click on this max file, click on manage files over there, you can see immediately I've got two textures for this item. The first one, texture leather, previous found, bitmap, status is found. This one over here, there's no preview, so we don't really know what's going on with this over here. What we can do is, using the manage external files tab, we can start fixing all of our broken assets. So let's click on this object right over here. Let's click refresh, see if anything happens, and it's just not picking it up. So if I click on this, I've got the option of removing. Now, very, very important. If I click remove, it is going to remove the attached asset or the texture from the max file, and you don't want to do that, because then you're going to have to go back into max and attach it again. So definitely don't remove it unless, of course, you know that it doesn't belong on this asset. We can replace the asset. So what that means is, if we don't want this wood to actually be on this object, what we can do is click replace, and what it's going to do, it's going to ask us what kind of asset or material that we want on there. So all you need to do is obviously locate the asset that you want. I could click on this one, and simply clicking open, it will replace this asset with that one over there. What else we can do is we can actually rename the asset. In this particular instance, it's wood 2. We know it's wood 1. So what we can do straight in the manage external files is click here, click on the rename tool. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to relabel that as wood 1, press enter, then the refresh button. And once I do that, you'll have a look, it immediately picks it up, everything's fine, and you can see the preview icon right over here. And if you click on it, you can see the preview straight away there. So by replacing an item, you can literally replace one texture for another texture, or if you are trying to find the original texture, you can rename it straight away, which obviously does help. So let's go to our next folder over here. Now, if I click on this item, it's telling me I've got this map. I know there are more textures that are actually a part of this. Now, what we can do is we can click on the manage files and start having a look at what the errors are. Number one is we see the file name. It is a bitmap and it's missing. This is where the path was. We need to find that. Second one, no idea where it is, what's happening. And then we got this one over here. Now the UV checker is something that inside your max file, the metadata inside the max file will register this. If it's not part of the scene and your max file still picks this up, it's just metadata that is actually inside the max file, and connector is actually reading that. So you can 100% remove that. That's not an issue, and then it won't pick up that anymore. Now what we can do is we can use the rename tool like we just discussed if the names are mismatched, and that'll pick it up immediately. What we can do is clicking the replace. So if we know where the asset is, the missing texture JPEG, we can click replace, and then we need to find it, knowing where the actual folder is. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. Number one is we can come over here, search 3D models, and search through all these models, find the folder, and then we can attach it. So that's not a problem. You can do everything actually inside the connector app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on search right over there, and then I'm going to add a path. Now the path is I'm going to add this entire 3D models folder. As I select folder and I click on search, it says they're searching for one file, one found. So we found that actual model now. So all you need to do is click over here away from the search, and there it is. It's actually found that item there. Now the path is still in red because the path status is missing. So we found the object, but now we need to set the path. It did find it in this folder right over there. So if I right click, I can open it up in Explorer to see exactly where it was, and it's in this folder right over there. So what I can do at this point is I can set this path. So I'm telling connector, listen, I found the actual image. I want you to reset this path from the broken path over here to the new path. So I'm going to click on set path. There it is, done, and we're happy. And then this one over here, if we click on this, let's do the replace function. So I'm going to click on replace, and I know it's called text_j. So I can do a search here, text_j, and click a search and find out. I know where it is. So what I can do is I can right click and just say open file location, and I know it's in this folder right over here. So click in the open, and then it picks it up. So it's a great way of finding all the missing assets or textures that are associated with your models. Now, what we can do over here is we can copy this. So if I click copy, it's going to copy it into a folder. So all I need to do is click on browse, and I know that this one actually belongs in this folder. I'm going to say select folder, copy files, and you can see immediately it copied it into the actual root folder here. Same concept. I can now copy this straight over here, copy files, and there it is. Nice and neat. I have my render that I created, my 2 max files, and now obviously my 2 textures. And that's important for me. These are the things that you need to do in organizing your actual asset folder. So these 4 options over here are giving you the power to find where all your assets are. Underneath settings, we easily can just show on and off the previews, any missing files. So if you only want to view the missing files, and of course apply changes to all the file instances. So if the file is an instance and you see multiple versions of it, you can apply all the changes and only have to do the work once. And then lastly, there's of course a filter here where you can search for anything. Okay, let's close this and go back to the rat and light and select this and carry on. External reference view, if I click on this, it is going to go back to the same view that we saw where it's isolated the actual images that are attached to the actual object. These we've discussed, ratings and tags we've discussed, description discussed, and then learn more again, connect server. The same is for any max file. If we dive into the HDRI image, this is quite great. What happens here is we can actually view the HDRI image in a 3D sphere. This really helps. Next is the simple PNG, which is the same as this JPEG or this PNG. So let's go to another folder over here called Armchair. And underneath the Armchair, I'd like to show you there's quite a few extra formats that I've created. I've created a 3ds, an FBX, I've got an MTL and an OBJ file, and of course the max versions right over here. Okay, so what we can do here with the 3ds, FBX and the OBJ is I can click on one of these objects, and what I can do is the following. I can click and drag here and you can see that the interactive is actually a 3D mode, which is great. If I hold in the right mouse button, you can see that I can actually change the light source, so that really helps. And if you come over here and you press the space bar while selected one of these formats, it'll actually open it up in a full view, basically taking up the whole screen, and then of course you can rotate and see what you want to do here. Now, at the top right, we've got 3 options. Number 1 is it'll reset to its default view. So in the event that you have misaligned something, you can just reset that. Next one is create a snapshot. Now this is really great because what this is going to do, this is actually going to create a snapshot for the actual model, and that is going to be used as a preview. So this is where Connector is really awesome. If we have to simply look at all these images for our objects, that isn't really going to be great for us, because at the end of the day we can see what the object is, but we don't really see the materials that's actually associated to that object. So what we can do is we can create custom previews for every single object in our actual asset management tool. So the first thing that we can actually do is press spacebar right over here. What we do is we find a view that we like, and then click snapshot. Now as I click snapshot, you'll see that this icon over here is going to change to this 1, 2, 3 click, and there it is right there. So let's close this by simply clicking away, and now you can see that little +1 is assigned to it. So we created a custom preview for this actual object, and it is right over there. And as you can see, I've now got both. The same can be done for the FBX model. So if we come in here, press the space bar, find a view we like, snapshot, and there it is there. And then lastly the OBJ. Finally, we got a settings tab over here. Now the settings tab is giving us a few more features. So background color is exactly what it does. We can change the background color to anything that we want. We got wireframe color. Now if we change shaders to wireframe, then we can change the wireframe color. Ambient color is for anything that is see-through, so any glass materials or anything that is very shiny, that's where ambient color will come into place. I've got an example here and show you a bit of a shortcut. If I simply just type J, it'll actually take me to all the J's. So again, just like a Windows. I'm going to go into this OBJ over here of this lamp, and I'm going to play around with the ambient color. Okay, so that's what the ambient color does. Back to Armchair. Okay, back to the settings. So we've got smooth and we got flat, and you can see all the facets there are there, and then the wireframe mode. So if we keep it on smooth for now, that's the way I prefer it. Camera mode, if you prefer to orbit or the 3ds max orbit. Now, very simple to understand, you can experiment with that. It's simply just the way that you're rotating the object. The field of view is just basically a camera setting. So this is to get a very nice close-up if you're looking for a custom preview. Then we have the flip XY axis. We can change the light's intensity over here. And then, of course, the show grid. Okay, so 3ds, FBX, and OBJs act all the same way. Okay, the next thing that I'd like to show you is, let's go all the way to the root folder. Now, what we can start doing with the folders is that we can start giving them different colors, we can star them, and we can even hide some of them. Now, this is really awesome because if we want certain folders to have a certain color to give us a reminder of what they're for, we can do that. So if I come to this folder here and I right click, I can star the object. So let's do that. As I click on that, you'll see a very little star appear over there. Now, later on when we dive into filters, this is really, really important and extremely useful. So what we can do is we can start starring certain folders that we use a lot or something that is one of our favorite assets. So we'll star a couple of these, scroll down, click a couple. Next, what we can do, if I right click again, I can actually change the color of the actual folder. So let's change this color, and for example, African light, let's change this to this color here, and immediately you can see that folder has now changed the color. So that's really awesome because now you can start categorizing certain models together. For example, in my instance, I would take all of my lights and I would give them all of a yellow folder. Let's say I take all my sofas and put them all into blue. So again, really useful when you're organizing all of your assets. If I come over here and I right click, again, change color, you can see that I can change each and every one of these colors. One thing to note, inside African Rat and Light, you'll remember that this arrow right here is showing me that there's another folder within here. If I right click and say change color, and I want both of these folders to have the same color, I can select the color that I want, and right there it says apply to subfolders. If I click that, every subfolder underneath that will obviously change to their color. This is the default color if you prefer to keep the default color. Okay, let's carry on. Right click, hide. Now this is actually going to hide the folder. So you'll see the African Rattan Light, right click, hide, and then that folder is gone. Now it is hidden, and the only way to see it again is to actually come into this cogwheel over here, and if I select that, it'll show hidden subfolders. So if I click on that right over there, all of a sudden we have our actual hidden, and you'll notice that the folder icon is a bit transparent now, indicating that it is a hidden folder. Right click to unhide that. Okay, so we'll go through this menu a little bit later as well. Right click, manage external files. Now we've discussed manage external files when we clicked on one object. Now that we're doing it to a folder, have a look what happens. It's picking up two PNGs with the same name. But if we look in the folder, we only see one PNG. And that is because we have two max files. So what it's telling us, it's picked up two max files, so they're two 3D files, and each 3D file needs this map here. So that's really important to note. It's not that it's doubled up anything, it's just telling you that, hey, this max file and this max file, they each are using a file or a map or a texture, and it happens to be that one over there. So when you see two, do not remove them because you will remove them from one of these, and that's not really, really good. Right click again, manage custom previews. We're going to dive into custom previews a bit later. For now, we can ignore that. PBR material preview. So if I activate this, this menu appears here. Now this is really awesome because what we can do here is we can actually grab PBR materials and click and drag them in here to actually give us an actual preview. I've already set one up and I'd like to show you. If I go into my subfolder, so notice in the root folder I went into the PBR material preview and nothing appeared. If I go into this folder here, I'd like to show you that I've got a start of a PBR material. If I do the same process but on this folder, so I'm going to right click, PBR material preview, and have a look what happens. It automatically loads the materials for me, giving me a cool look and feel. One thing to note, let's start at the top. Diffuse, awesome, that one worked. Specular, there's nothing. Glossiness, nothing. Normal, it picked up the normal. The height is nothing, and the ambient occlusion did pick it up. So it missed the roughness map and it missed the displacement map. And that is because connector is very sensitive to the naming convention. So what that means is displacement should be height. So if I relabel this to height, it'll automatically slide in there. And of course, roughness can go into the specular or the glossiness. But remember, you need to use these words. If you don't want to relabel the items, that's okay. You can simply take the missing map, click and drag, put that right over there, let go, automatically updates. Let's grab the roughness, put that into the glossiness, and there we go. So the PBR workflow, really awesome, allows you to see an actual finished material. And then of course you can click and drag all over the space. There are a couple of extra features that you can do. So number one is you can obviously reset it using this middle mouse button over here to the original view. So if we click this cog over here, you can see a menu. Preset 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that is basically changing over the HDRIs. Now, if we simply change from preset 1 to preset 2, you can see the tones are changing, but not the background. If you'd like to see the background, just click Show Environment. So I'm going to tick that on, and now I can see what environment I'm looking at this. So preset 1, which is nothing in the background, preset 2, interior, 3, 4, and 5. Custom HDRI, so if you have a certain HDRI image that you love and you want to use that as the background, that's the option you would do. You come in here, choose the HDRI and let it go. Environment rotation, you can obviously rotate the background as you want. Choose shader object type, so if you prefer to have a custom shape, you can do that as well. You've got a sphere, a box, or the connector shader ball if you prefer. So in a situation like this with this material, we can simply change that to a box. Very, very simple. Or of course the connector shader ball, which is already installed. If you have your own shader ball or your own specific object, again, you can simply come in a custom, click that icon, and then it will obviously load it for you. The camera orbit, FOV, and flip is exactly already what we discussed. You can fiddle those to see which ones you do prefer. If we come over here and click this button right over there, it's going to load the material obviously in full view, allowing me to look around in a bigger space. Okay, so I'm going to deactivate the PBR because it's taking up a bit too much of my screen. So I'm going to go into Window. I'm going to deactivate PBR material. And remember, you can click away to deactivate that window, or you can just click the window or the settings tab to get rid of that. Okay, let's go back to the root folder here. If I right click again, I'm going to have open in Explorer. We discussed that. It'll literally open up the Windows Explorer for you and show you where this object is. Copy path, all it's going to do, it's going to copy this exact path here, which you can take into Windows Explorer and just paste that. The Windows context menu, really awesome. If I click on this, it's actually going to give me the Windows tab as if I've right clicked on that through Windows, allowing me to do a whole bunch of extra things. Right clicking again, create new folder. Now, what's going to happen is if I create a new folder, so let's dive into the Windows tab quickly, right over here. I'm going to right click, say create new folder, and let's just call this test. I'm going to press enter, and you'll see immediately the folder was created in Windows. So just remember that it is linked. So they are very sensitive to one another. If I go into the test folder and I say delete, it is going to delete it. It's telling you that it's going to send to the recycle bin. So I'm going to send this to recycle bin and it will delete it there. So do not think that if you delete something in the connector, it is still going to appear in your Windows. You will actually delete that asset. So just be very careful with that. So if I right click again, we just discussed create new folder, I can cut, copy, delete, rename any of these folders. And again, just a word of warning, whatever you do here is going to reflect in your Windows tab. Properties will obviously give you the right folder properties of that as if you're in Windows. Okay, now that we've gone through the right click menu here, let's start looking at our folders again. Now, if I click on one folder and I realize, okay, I would actually like most of these to actually be a certain color. You can only click one at a time. If I hold in the control key, I can still only click one at a time. So what you need to do is click on this first option here, and it actually says enable the selection of multiple folders to star, change color, hide. So I'm going to activate this, and now I can click, and I'm not clicking any other item. I'm simply clicking as many folders as I want, and this is my multi-select tool. Once I've done that, I can right click, change color, choose the color that I want, and you'll see that each one that I did select is now changing color. So if you want to change the following, if you want to change the color, if you want to star or hide, make sure you've got the multi-selection tool selected. So I'm going to click again to deactivate that mode. Now, the search function, again, really awesome. If I click on search, it is what it says. I'm going to type in armchair, press the enter key, and any folder that has the word armchair in it will obviously appear right over here. So that's really important. Next, what we have is the organization tab. So if I want to organize it via name, color, date created, or date modified, this is what you're going to do over here. The settings tab. Now, we've already discussed the show hidden subfolders. So remember, if you've hidden a folder, you need to be able to see it to unhide it. Show start folders. So for example, I only want to see the start folders. I can click this and activate it, and then obviously it will only show me my start folders. It's as if it's a favorites folder. Next, we have ignore folder. If there is a folder that you do not want to touch, you want to ignore it, you can simply type it in here and it will actually ignore that folder inside your root folder. So for example, bb_sofa, bb_sofa. I know that I do not want to touch this folder. I do not want to do anything to it, manipulate it, and I also don't want it to appear in any of my searches. Underneath the ignore folders, I've typed it out, click the plus sign. You can see it's disappeared there, and it's disappeared even without the start folder button activated. So that folder is ignored completely, keeping it safe. And that's it for the folders tab right over here. So really important, this is where you start. You want to add your folder in, and then from there we're going to move into the next section and we'll start organizing all of our assets nice and neatly. So let's start discussing about this main window right over here where all the information is shown. Let's close the root folder and let's dive into it. So I'm going to select the root folder right over there. The option to see everything inside the root folder, there are two ways of doing it. If I right click, I can say show assets in subfolders. So with this little tick, we see every single item that is inside this root folder. So I'm talking all of these folders right over here, everything will be here. And this is where you can scroll down and see how many files you actually have. And this is where it's useful to actually scroll if you want to see a lot more items. If you do not want to use that button, you can simply click this button right over there. This one is exactly the same. Show assets in subfolders, 1, 2, 3, click, and we obviously see everything here. So I would like to go to one folder that I've prepared for this part of the tutorial. I've called it the stacking folder. So we're going to start discussing how to stack items, because when you start adding more and more and more assets, you're obviously going to have a lot more names, a lot more files, and if you stack items, it's going to organize things a lot neater for you. So stacking is available right over here at this button here. So let's start at the left first. This is to refresh your assets. Obviously, if you've made a change and it's not reflected in connector, just refresh everything here. Next to that is how to organize the layers. If you'd like to see it by name, date created, date modified, file size, folder, or group by type. This option here allows you to stack your items. So at the very top, it's called stack by name. Now, it does exactly what the name implies. It is going to stack all the items that have the exact same name. Now, if we start at the very top, we've got a 3ds file called armchair. We got an FBX, MTL file, OBJ file. Now, they're all called armchair. Next to that, we've got armchair corona v1, v2, v3, and then as you can see, all of these names are different. So I've got the texture, which is dark brown mahogany, 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K. I've got the bump version, and then I've got a couple of my renders. I'd like you to notice that I have mislabeled some of them. We've got render underscore 1, 2, 3. Number 4 does not have an underscore. Number 5 is actually spelled wrong. And then I've got a couple of textures over here. So if I go stack by name, 1, 2, 3, click, you'll see immediately it's actually organized it very neatly for me. So number 4 over here is representing that this icon has 4 objects in it. If I click on there, you can see all of them straight away. So if you think of it as it's created a little bit of a mini folder for you. So we got 3ds, FBX, MTL, and the OBJ file. Because they were all labeled exactly the same, it has picked that up and they've put them there. The armchair corona v1, v2, v3, it also picked it up that they were the same names and it stacked them together, and that is what the number there is representing. If you look at these renders that I've created, so if I click on here, it's got a number 4, and that represents obviously the 4 renders are picked up. It did not recognize the misspelled one over here. It did recognize the underscore was missing, and it still stacked it for me. If I go over here and say enable fuzzy match, 1, 2, 3, click, you'll see that it immediately grouped it. At the same time, it also grouped these guys. So let's undo that quickly. So we've got the 1, 2, 3, and 4K version, and we got this misspelled render one over here. If I click and say enable fuzzy match, it's going to pick up all of the misspelled items or anything that is really close to the original name, and it will stack it for you. So let's untick fuzzy match, unstack by name. We got stack PBR materials. Now, Connector will do its best to try stack the materials that it can see that would form a PBR material. For example, if we click on this one over here, again, we see number 2 because it's got 2. We got the new PBR label over there. It's grouped the bump and the diffuse map. Let's scroll quickly all the way to the top where I actually prepared a PBR folder right over there. And you'll see that it actually put all of them together. So if I click on there, you can see all of the materials will form the PBR material. So this is really awesome because if we don't have that as a stacked version, we've got 5 different items, which is fine, but if you've got hundreds and hundreds of these assets and they all form one PBR material, stacking it is going to save you a lot of space. Let's scroll all the way back down again, stacking. Let's untick PBR material. I do have a stack versions and variants, and this is where the V1, the V2, and the V3 play a really good role. If I stack versions and variants, 1, 2, 3, click, you'll see that it stacked them. Version 1, 2, and 3. So if you're an artist that does have different versions or variations, this is the naming convention that you should use. Try use V1 for version or variant, and then Connector will actually pick that up for you. Next on the list, we have the stack images in different sizes. Now this is where the 1K, 2K, 3K, and 4K naming convention works with Connector. It will pick that up for you. So again, remember, if you label it correctly in your Windows directory, then Connector will help you by stacking them. So stack images in different sizes, 1, 2, 3, click, it will select all of them for you, and there we go. The 2, 3, 4, and the 1K all will now appear as one icon, again saving you a lot of space visually. Okay, so let's untick that, and then at the very top here we do have a search function where you can choose to search all assets, assets in selected folder, and tagged assets only. So we'll dive into that. So the difference between this search bar and this one over here is as follows. If I search here, it will only search in this folder with no other options. If I search here, I have the option of saying, okay, I want you to search in all my folders, all my assets. Or of course, I can say only in the selected folder. So this is my master search function, and this one is for my folders only. Okay, let's jump all the way back to the main folder. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to learn the right click menu on each and every single item. So starting with the JPEG, right click, I've got another window with more options. So let's start at the very top. The right click menu is going to allow us to now add tags. We can star items, and if you remember, we were able to star folders. Now we can add a star to certain objects, whether it's renders or 3D models or any other asset, we can star them. We can add a description and we can hide things. So let's start at the very top. The first one is the open. Self-explanatory. If you click open, it will open it up in Windows. So whatever program you're using to actually open up the JPEG, it will open that up. So if I chose the Max file open here, it will open up 3D Max to open that. If I preview the asset, it will preview inside Connector, and that's the same as just double clicking it. If I go to tile image, now this is a great feature because this is going to allow you to test if an actual texture is tileable. So let's go to this PNG right over here, right click, tile image. Now as I do that, it loads it, and now what it's done is it's actually split it up for me. What you need to do is just take your cursor and just scroll it to the bottom, and you can see that the X is by 2 and the Y is by 2. So the first thing we do is we can show the grid on and off. We can change the color of the grid, that's not a problem. I like to keep the grid on because it's showing me where the actual duplicates are. So let's just jump to 1 and 1. You can see that is my image. If I jump all the way, let's go all the way to 4, for example, you can see that I've got a grid line there, got a grid line here. So there's 4 of these, 4 of them, 4 of them, and 4 of them. By disabling the grid, and you can press G on your keyboard just like that, you can see that it is a seamless texture. So with inside connector, you can tell if something is seamless or if it needs a little bit of work. Right click again, we've got isolate view. So if I do that, it's going to isolate this, meaning it's going to be the only one visible in the folder. Clicking this button just to go back. Right click again. Copy tags is hidden. We're going to dive into tags a little bit later. Add custom property. This one is only exclusive for the connector server, so we don't need to worry about that here. Open with. If you choose this option, it's going to ask you what program you'd like to open it with, obviously as an external source. Open in Explorer will obviously show you where it is in your Explorer, taking you directly to that actual folder. There it is over there. Right click again, copy full path, and that is going to copy the path, which you of course can paste it somewhere else if you want to go there. And remember, it's the same as copying this path right over here. We do have zip assets, self-explanatory. It will actually zip the asset for you. We've got cut, copy, delete, rename, and then properties. Properties is the same as if you were right-clicking on the object and saying view properties, so it gives you a bunch of information. And then lastly, the Windows context menu is the Windows menu if you were right-clicking that object, again allowing you to do a lot more functions. The PNG right-click menu is identical. The 3D Max. So if I right click, we discussed what open does. If we preview the asset, it is only going to show you the screenshot or the image that connector has for it. The locate asset. Now this one is useful, again, if you have done a search and you have found where that asset is via the search, you can right click and say locate asset. For example, let's go into our root folder over here and let's type in armchair. And we press enter. It's going to find every single thing that has armchair. If this is the asset that I want, I can right click, locate asset. Paying attention to my left folder over here, locate asset will take me straight away to this folder right here, and it'll tell me where it is. Manage external files, we've already discussed this. It's the same menu that we've gone through. Right clicking again, we've got generate custom previews. Now this is awesome. It's one of my favorite features here. This is going to allow you to actually create a custom preview for your actual models. So we're going to dive into this right now. Before we do that, if you have already got a preview, or you got an image or a photo or anything that you would like for the actual custom preview, all you actually have to do is take the JPEG or the PNG, click. I'm going to drag it right on top of my 3D file. This is OBJ, FBX. This works with all formats. And as I let go, it's going to say hide previews. Yes, no, always, don't show, never, don't show. So what does this mean? What's happening now is that connector has picked up that you've got already some previews available. If I say hide previews, what's going to happen is it's going to hide these two previews, and it's going to use this image here for the 3D Max file. So the first question is, why do you want to hide your previews? And that is because you don't want to get confused. If we say yes, let's have a look. It's hidden that JPEG, it's kept the PNG, but now have a look. This looks like the JPEG now, when in fact it's actually the Max file. So by hiding the previews, you won't get confused on which one is the Max file, allowing you to click and drag that straight into your Max folder. So remember, let's go to settings. Let's say show hidden assets. You can see it's right over there. So what we need to do here is we right click, and this option right here is to unhide it. So here comes the confusion part. Let's say you did not hide it. Now all of a sudden we got 3 of them. At first glance, we don't know which one is the Max file. It takes a little bit longer to just recognize that, hey, this is the Max file, this is the Chrono version. If we hit the previews, then it just saves us a bit of extra time from figuring out which is the correct asset. So I'm going to click and drag right over here, say let go. So hide previews, yes, we just discussed what it does. If I say no, obviously it won't do it. And then always don't show again, and never don't show again. Your choice which one you prefer. So I'm going to say yes for now. So now that we've selected our own preview, we clicked and dragged, and now that is representing our custom preview. If I select the object and right click, I now can remove the custom preview, manage custom previews, and delete the custom preview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove the custom preview, and I'm going to say yes. It goes back to the original one. Right clicking here, we can generate a custom preview using connector itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a folder that has already been organized for this. Now, if we look what we have in front of us, we've got the texture, we got a custom preview that I've generated myself, and then I've got the Max VR, and then I've just got a Max file here. Now, this is my Corona file. It is a Max 2022 file, but the way that the file was saved inside Max, it's actually just not being read correctly through connector. So it's a bit of a bug inside Max. The metadata inside the Max file, when you did save it, actually just didn't save correctly. So in situations like this is where it's really awesome to actually have a custom preview. So I could click and drag this right over there, and that'll be my custom preview. But I'd like to show you an amazing feature that connector has that'll generate one for you. So I'm going to select this object, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say generate custom preview. If I selected add custom preview, it's going to ask me which one I'd like to do. I can select that and click open. It's exactly the same as just clicking and dragging. What I'm going to do here is generate custom preview. As I do that, it says before starting you must choose a folder where connector will store the Preview Studios files. So what we can do is we can go inside here, and I'm just going to create a folder right over here called previews and select folder. That's the first step. Now we've got a brand new menu. We've got generate, which is grayed out for now. We've got get studio, add studio, edit studio, remove queue, and settings. The first thing to know is that you cannot generate because you need a studio. You can add your own studio in if you want. What that means is go into Max, create a scene for you, set it up accordingly to the rules that I'm about to tell you, and then load that studio inside this queue. If you do not have a studio or do not want to create one, very simple. Get studio. Now get studio is going to give you an entire list. Now these are all connectors Max files that they are going to let you download. So the first thing to know is we've got different renderers and we've got different sizes. So you can see we've got a couch, which is quite a big one, and if you just click and drag here, it's actually going to tell you design for all kinds of furniture, clean, pale wooden floor. Scroll down, this is more of a close-up. We've got two different kinds of material ones. We got a cube, we got a cloth one, we got a very nice close-up, we got a white background. So there's a lot to go through, but let's minimize what we want. First thing is as follows: host app 3D Max. Second, I want it in the Corona version. So just by doing that, it's already minimized it. Now which one would suit my object? Because it's one piece of furniture, I can either choose for it to be on a white background. The close-up won't work, the object's too big. I definitely don't want one of these, so I'm going to choose this one right over here. Once I come over here, all I have to do is just download the studio file. So 1, 2, 3, click. It's going to download, and Preview Studio successfully downloaded. Now that it is downloaded, I can click on the back button, and now I've got this as one of the studios, so that's really awesome. And now I can generate. So there's a couple of rules that we need to follow. And I'm going to open up my Max to show you what I've done to my object. Okay, now that I've got the Max file open, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I did to my model. So the first thing that you have to do, or you will get rendering errors, you got to customize, unit setup. You will notice that the unit setup inside the connector is set to centimeters. So whatever scene you are using, models, whatever the case is, so let's say it's one piece of furniture, open up that piece of furniture into an empty Max. Make sure that the unit setup is to centimeters. That is really, really important. You got to do that. The second thing that you have to do is take note where my pivot point is. It's at the very bottom. Generally speaking, it's okay wherever it is here, but best practice is to actually snap it directly to the center at the very bottom of your object. Then you're going to save that Max file. So now that I've explained the two rules, meaning the system unit setup and the pivot point, those two rules apply to the actual original files of the studio that you download from connector. So if you want to change that, you can change it. You can change the pivot point location and you can change the system unit setup as long as they are the same. When I mean the same is your file and the studio's file. As long as the unit's setup is the same, that'll be fine, and then you can change the pivot point if you want as well. Okay, back into connector. Now that we've done that, we followed the two rules. I've got my scene, I've downloaded it, I've selected it. I'm going to click on generate now. So when I click generate, it's going to say generate preview task added to the batch processing unit. So if it asks you a dedicated 3ds Max, you just go auto setup, choose the latest version, it's not a problem, and now it's going to open up a Max in the background. So if we go under tools and previews generation queue right over there, click that, you'll now see this following window. This window is telling us we've got this Max file, the date, how long it's taking, and it is generating a preview with 3D Max, and of course there's your status. So all we need to do is just wait here. If we get an error, it's going to tell us what the error is, and then we can simply correct that, and then obviously generate that preview. So give it a couple of seconds, and as you can see, it generated a perfect render for us. So this is our queue. We can clear the queue if we want, meaning it'll just take that all away, which is fine. The process manager is just telling us what is running in the background and how it ran. Now we've got our JPEG, which is awesome. It generated this beautiful image and it attached it to the Max file, which is amazing. So you can create your own previews, and all the previews then can be attached to the Max file or any other 3D asset file, giving you a clean look for all of your assets. So if you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe and like button. It really does help. I'm going to be producing a lot more of these tutorials for other pieces of software as well as other plugins. And if you've got a chance, click on VizCourse.com. If you're looking for a 3D Max or Corona course, I teach everything that I've learned in my 17 years as an artist. I start from the very beginning of Max and Corona, and I go all the way to the end for the ArcViz industry. I'm talking everything gets covered in there, so it's one course to teach you everything that you need to know. Okay, let's carry on with this Max file. So if I right click here, I can now remove the custom preview, and then we got manage custom previews. Now, this is a great tool in the event that one of your previews have gone missing. So let's say you've attached a custom preview to your object, and then inside Windows, perhaps you relabeled the preview, the folder, or you moved the folder or the files inside Windows. Connector will pick that up, that there's a missing link. All you need to do over here is find out where it is. So if it says missing, you'll relocate the missing previews using this tab. If I right click again, I can delete the custom preview. That's not a problem. Add custom property is for connector server, so we don't need to worry about that. Open with, already discussed, open in Explorer, copy full path, zip, cut, copy, delete, all done. Delete asset in previews, be careful, delete it here, it's gone. You can rename the asset, the properties, and the Windows context menu we've already discussed. Okay, that now leaves us with tags. I'm going to skip tags one more time because I'd love to teach you tags right over here. For now, let's look at this. This is called a star. The star is the same concept as starring an actual folder. So I'm going to star this object. Let's go into a couple of more Max files. I'm going to star this object. Let's star this guy right over here. And just do a couple of random stars, and then it'll show you the benefits of starring a couple of items. Okay. Right clicking again, we have this option here, which is a description. We discussed that already. All it is just writing a small description for yourself. This can be useful because later on we can discuss filters. So if there is a description that you want to filter out, for example, if I click here and I just call this gold chair. So that's fine for now, gold chair. You can see the description has gone over there. We can later do a filter for anything that has descriptions on, and it'll obviously pick that up. Let's go into another one over here. So I'm going to click on this tag over here. Let's go into description and let's say blue sofa and click the OK button. Next, we have the hide and unhide feature, which we've already discussed. So exactly the same right throughout. And that finally leaves us with tags. Now, tags is one of my favorite features of Connector. It is going to allow you to further organize all of your assets. So we've already discussed with the folders, we can change the color, we can star certain items, we can star certain folders. Tags dives further into that. Now, I don't like to add tags from this button right over here. I do prefer to add it from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add and use this section right over here, and then I'll show you how to do it from this button. So the first thing to do is understand what is a tag. A tag is basically labeling an item and then categorizing them even further. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to start creating some tags. Now, the tags is all up to you, whatever and however you want to do it. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So if we create a tag by clicking this button right over here, we obviously need to give it a name. So for now, let's just go for sofa. I'm going to click away. Then I'm going to create another one. Let's call this chair, for example, click away, and then another one, lights. So now we got 3 tags. What we can do as well is create a sub tag. So I'm going to select sofa. While sofa is selected, I'm going to add another tag. So we've got a tag and now a sub tag. This will help you break up the tags into different further tags or further categories. For example, we've got sofa, but then we can break it up into, let's say, classical sofas. So with sofa still selected, I'm going to grab another sub tag, call this modern. So now we've got sofa as the tag, and underneath that 2 sub tags. You can break it again by adding another sub tag. So we got the main tag, sub tag, and then another sub tag, but we don't need to go into that detail. So let's delete that one. So let's start at the very top. What can we do here? If we select the tag right over there and we right click, we can obviously rename it. We can delete, we can change color, change the icon, create a new sub tag, which you've done, and then we can add it to the ignore list. The change color again is really helpful. So let's change a color. We select that. We can choose any of these colors over here. So let's go for that color there. And it does the main tag. If you wanted to follow through all the sub tags, we can right click, change color, activate, apply to sub tags, select the color we want, and then of course everything gets changed. We can further change it, and I think this is a great feature, by changing the icon. For example, sofa, we can simply just choose a sofa icon or something that will obviously represent that for us. So let's just choose that one over there. We got a chair, right click, change icon, choose a chair, lights, right click, change icon, and let's choose a light. So now you can start seeing what advantages it is to have tags in all of your items. So now we need to start adding tags, or at least start adding the items to the tags. And we've got 2 ways of doing that. So let's go underneath sofa, and let's just go to this grand sofa over here. The first way to do it is to select the item. We can right click, and now we can choose a tag here. And as I add tag, it's going to ask me search for tags. Now I know this is sofa. It's going to say sofa. I'm going to click on there, and it says asset tagged. So I can close this straight away, and if I go into the root tag folder, there's a number 1 there, and that is obviously representing that there's 1 item. Let's go back to the grand sofa, click on it again. I'd like to show you that the tag is also over here. So whenever you scroll through items, you'll always see some information. Now you can see we've already got a description, and now it is in sofa. What we can do as well is add it to the modern. So what I am going to do is I'm going to select the object, and I'm simply going to click and drag, and I'm going to put it under modern and then let go. So now in the root tag, it's still got a 1, and the modern tag now shows a 1. Now if we populate this a bit, it starts getting bigger, but then you can start seeing how it's organizing it. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab some sofas. So let's grab the Corona, click, drag into modern. You'll see that it also added into the root folders. That's really important to know. Click, drag. Let's go into some classical ones. Okay, now that we've added a couple, I'm going to go into chair quickly, and all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the wrong tags here. So let's go underneath armchair, let's grab that one, let's put it into chair, and then the African light, let's put that under chair as well. Okay, so let's break this down quickly. Sofa, I can see immediately I've got 9 in my sofa collection. The subtags obviously helps because then I can break it down to the classical and the modern ones that I have. So if I come into this folder, you'll see that I've got 2 objects here. One is a light, one is a chair. I know I've made a mistake. So what we need to do is we need to move this tag right over here. And the one way we can do that is as follows. I'm going to select this option right over there. It enables us to quickly add and remove selected objects. So step number 1, make sure that's highlighted. Step number 2, you're going to click on the object you want. It's important to pay attention to the icons here. So what's going to happen is they're going to turn into checkboxes. As I click on that, there is a tick there. The tick is to tell us that this object belongs in this tag. If I click on the tick box here, 1, 2, 3, click, you can see the lights turn to 1, meaning I've added this light model to the lights tag, which is great. However, we do not want it in the chairs. So we need to untick this one. 1, 2, 3, click, untagged. Now the chair tag is done and the lights tag is done. So that's the best way to move your objects from tag to tag. if I click on this object right over here, making sure that it is a tagged asset, if I right click, you can see that I've got copy tags. So this is another way that you can actually just duplicate the tags to items. For example, I'm going to copy this tag, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to find another light. So let's go underneath Alistair. I'm going to select this object. I can right click, and now I can paste my tag. I cannot copy the tags that are belonging to this object because this object does not have a tag. If I paste the tag, it's going to copy the tag of light. 1, 2, 3, click, and now I've got 2 right over there. So that's one way of adding an object to a tag section. Now the dropping method is what I do prefer. However, in situations like this where you have things stacked, so if you remember how we stack these objects right over there, you'll see that all the objects are stacked over here. If I click on this object, you see I've got the 3ds, FBX, and the OBJ. If I click and drag here, it's not going to allow me to actually do that. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to either unstack it, or this is where you can right click and then paste the tag that you want it to belong to. The next thing we can do, if we click an item that already has a tag, we can right click and simply say replace tag. Now we know if we go underneath chair that this object is a chair. If we come over here, we know these are lights. If I had to right click and say replace tags, 1, 2, 3, click, it did move the object into the lights. So you can see there's different ways of moving objects, whichever way you prefer. It's really as simple as that. Next we have the search function. Again, very self-explanatory. Activate that, type in whatever you want to search for, press enter, and obviously it will show you that. Next is how you want to rearrange it via name or order. And then of course we've discussed this one. This is how to create a new tag. So definitely use tags as one of the best features of Connector. And just a quick word of warning. Once you've set all your tags and you're happy with the way they are and everything's running smoothly, just remember this one rule. If you move the object from a Windows folder to another folder, you're going to break the tag and you're going to lose the tag. Because remember, Connector and Windows are linked now. So if you move the asset, you're going to lose the tag. Okay, the next part of this tutorial, I want to teach you filters. So let's go to the root folder right over here. Let's activate this button, which obviously shows all the assets that we have. At the very top of here, we've got this huge bar here, which is explaining all the filters that we have. So if I keep my mouse cursor over the first one, it says filter 3D files. I've got materials, I've got images, videos, audio, BIM, CAD, scripts, and then other, meaning anything else that is not listed here. I've got starred assets, tagged assets, assets with descriptions. I've got assets with previews, hidden assets, filter missing assets, and then this one, which is a combination filter, which I'll explain in a second. So if you do not want to see, for example, any of the images, you can simply click and you can see it's grayed out, meaning you've deactivated, which means we won't see any of those objects. If I go again on this one, we're going to take away all of those, which means we're left with just the 3D filters. With the 3D filters and with any of the other options, you can click this little arrow right over there, and now it's telling you all of the assets that you have. So what we can do is I can minimize that I only want to see max files. I only want to see the 2022 version of the max files. Now the renderers tab, you cannot see both properties of max version and the renderer, meaning I cannot filter out only the 2022 max files that are Corona or any other rendering engine. So these two properties don't work together. What I want to show you is a little bit of a trick. We can activate and deactivate by simply clicking, but if you want to click on one of them and hide all the others, you can simply hold the control button. So I'm going to hold in control and I'm just going to click filter 3D files. It's hidden everything else except the one that I've clicked on. So very, very cool to do that. If I click again with control, it undoes that. Okay, so just to show you, if I click the down arrow, it's obviously showing you all the formats that you have of each filter right over there. If we scroll all the way to the right, we've got a starred asset, we've got in tags. Now, if I only want to see the starred assets with the click of a button, it's exactly what it is. We only see the starred asset in the actual folder, which is great. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go into this folder right over there. We've kept this filter on, which is only showing us the starred asset. If I click this button again, what it's going to do is going to turn this number to red. So let's do that. and now it says a number 5 and it's in red. It's in red because it's telling us that we have filtered out the starred objects and we are only showing the unstarred objects. Okay, so let's do that again. I'm going to click on it one more time and you can see that there's a 1 there, which is fine. It's telling us that it's starred. So I'm going to activate the filter. We see one object. I'm going to click it again. It's showing us the unstarred objects and it's not showing us the starred object. Clicking again switches it off. Tagged, exact same example. If I filter only want to see the tags, I'm only seeing the tagged items. If I click again, it's showing me all the untagged items, and then click in one more time, switches it off. Let's go to the root folder here. Now we've got description, and that works the exact same way. I'm seeing all the items with descriptions. Clicking again shows me all the items that are without descriptions. This one is for assets with previews. This is for hidden assets. This is for missing assets. And then we have this option over here. Now, the filtering system over here with this button is giving us the option to combine two filters together that are starred and tagged. So what that means is the following. If I want to filter only the stars, so I click on that, I've got 11 of them. But now I would like to see the items that are both starred and tagged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate tag. So now what we're viewing is starred items and tagged items. I would like to filter it out that only to see the items that are both starred and tagged. If I activate this button, it minimizes it for me, and then I know, okay, this is the tagged and starred item, and these are the 3. And that of course works with any of these filters over here. Okay, let's deactivate that. Next, let's jump back over here. We've got this workflow, but this is for the connector server, so we don't need to worry about that one. This option here as well, collections, is for the connector server. And then we have dynamic subsets. A dynamic subset is a saved searched filter that you want to keep in the event that you're constantly using the same searched category to find something. Let's do a couple of examples. If I go into the root folder right over there, make sure that we are viewing everything. What I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to type in chair. Press enter. So now I'm seeing all the assets with the word called chair. Now what I do is I click this plus sign right over there and it's saved my search. Now if I click on here, I can right click and say rename, or I can update the current state, meaning that if you've changed any of the filtering that you've done, you need to save it again, you need to update it. So now if we go back into the root folder right over there, and we are working with connector, and then we want to go back to that saved subset or that saved search, all we need to do is just click this button right over there and it will remember that search that we've done. Now there are a few limitations. You cannot do it. For example, if we had to go into only Max, only 22 and only Corona, that metadata does not get used inside connector, so that one won't be able to work. There are a couple of search functions you can use. For example, if I do armchair, press enter, and I only want to see the Max files. So right there, armchair and Max files. I'm going to save this. I'm going to right click, rename, say armchair, and I know that it was armchair with Max files. So armchair Max, click. So what I can do is reset all my filters, making sure that I'm viewing everything here. If I go back to armchair Max and click on it, you'll see that it's saved that search, and that is a dynamic subset. Next over here we have this button here, asset rating. This is for connector server, so it's not going to be of any use for us right now. Next we have at the top, we're going to finish this tab over here, which I have left for now. Batch rename assets. This is a really powerful tool as well. I'm going to scroll down all the way to this folder right over here. I'm going to make sure that I'm viewing everything because you can see the filters are still here, and I'm going to unstack everything. Now I pointed out earlier that I actually made a few mistakes over here. I've got render underscore 1, 2, 3. I've left out the underscore here and I've mistyped that one. So what we can do is we can use a batch renaming tool inside connector to actually rename everything instead of going one by one by one, which will take a lot of our time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 assets. I'm going to go to tools, batch rename assets. Now we've got this huge menu over here. The first thing, let's start at the top. It says replace. So it says find. It's asking you to find a name, a number, a letter inside the file name that you want to replace. So for example, I'm going to type in the underscore. So have a look here. It says render underscore 1, underscore 2, underscore 3. This one doesn't have one, and then underscore 5. I'm going to find the underscore and immediately have a look what it's done. If I simply click rename now, it's going to relabel all of these with render 1, render 2, render 3. However, because render number 4 did not have anything, it's not going to relabel it. It's going to keep it as render 4. And then render underscore 5 becomes render 5. Even though there's still an error over there, we can still fix that. So simply with a couple of seconds of work, I've actually relabeled all of my renders if I've made a mistake, as opposed to going to each and every single one, especially if you've got, let's say, 200, 300, 400 renders. So if we're using the find button to find something, we can replace that with obviously another letter or a number or a symbol. For example, I found all the underscores. I want to replace it with, let's say, a dash. So you can see that it was render underscore 1. It is now render dash 1. Just bearing in mind that it cannot do it to render 4 because render 4 never had an underscore. So therefore it cannot relabel that one for you. I'm going to remove these quickly. I want to show you what case sensitive does. If I use the capital R for render, so if I say find in R, it's going to remove the R in all of these, but keep the lowercase r. So capital R, that one, it's removed it. And that's because case sensitive is on. If I untick that, it will remove both of the letter R's. Activate that again just for now. Okay, let's remove that. Next is the remove from position until position. So what that means is we are working from the left to the right, and position means the number or letter of the actual word. So for example, position 1, if I go to count 1, have a look what it's done. It's removed the very first letter from letter 1 until letter 1, which is R. If I increase this again, it's going to take the E away, the N away, the D away, the E, the R, and then again. So just keep track of what you're doing. Again, remember, these ones have less letters as opposed to these ones. Let's scroll that back to 0. Next we have remove from. We can choose after and before. So instead of doing a position, we can actually choose a letter, number, or any symbol inside the word. So for example, I'm going to click on after, and I'm going to type a capital R. Anything that is after the capital R, so I'm going to type in that, I want it to be removed, but it has to be before, let's say, the underscore. So now you can see what we've done. Anything after R, which is the ENDER, up until before the underscore needs to be removed. And as you can see, it's relabeled it all for me again. Just remember, this one did not have the underscore, so there are a few limitations. If I had to choose to the end, it'll obviously remove everything, but just bear that in mind that we have errors because all of these images are labeled the exact same, and we can't exactly have that. Okay, let's reset that. Delete current names will obviously delete everything, and then you can start from scratch. That's not a problem. Direction from left to right, or as opposed to right from left, depending how you want to work. Next, we have the option to add something to the actual name of the file. So for example, I would like to add in the numbers 00. Now, immediately went to the front of the queue because of the position number 1, meaning from the front. If I increase the numbers, you can start seeing they're moving down the chain of letters. So this looks great. Render 001, 002, 003. This one did not work great, and remember why? Because position 8 in these 4, so we're talking render 1, 2, 3, and 5, position 8 was just after the underscore. Position 8 in render 4 was after number 4. You can choose the before command, so you want to insert 00 before, let's say, the letter R, meaning it'll go in front. So if we had to go to add the underscore over there, we now have 00 underscore, and then it carries on. And then again, left to right or right to left. Let's remove those. Next we have numbering, so we can add numbers to our renders. So at position 1, n of 0, so number of zeros, and we must start from which position. So let's break this down. At position 1, again, position 1 is in the very beginning. If I had to increase this, you can see it's starting to move down the chain. The amount of zeros, we can obviously keep adding zeros as we feel fit. And then where do you want it to start from? You want it to start from what number? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can see it's starting at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the batch rename is an incredible feature. It's going to save you hours of time if you've made a mistake, or if you just want to relabel everything to be a lot neater. Once we have committed to this, we simply click the rename function. If we want to undo, we can remove items, and of course just refreshing it. Okay, so I'm going to close this now. Next, under that, we have auto assign previews. Now, auto assign previews is again a very powerful function to use. If you have a lot of assets and you've already got previews, and instead of clicking and dragging on each and every single one, what you can do is use the tool auto assign previews. So I've prepared a folder for us. I'm going to add that folder here quickly, and right over there 3D Scar. So I'm going to click on 3D Scar and select that folder. What I would like to do is show you what's inside this folder. If I click the root folder, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 JPEGs, and in the max folder I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 max files. Now there are a couple of differences here. If I go into 3D Scar, the root folder, let's view everything. Name of the preview and name of the max file are identical here. Adam's Spotlight and Adam's Spotlight bar are slightly different. I've got this asset over here with the word Corona where the preview doesn't, and then a Kiko Lounge armchair is identical there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Tools, I'm going to go to Auto Assign Previews. As I select that, it says this tool assigns to 3D and other asset image files as custom previews. I'm going to say got it. Now we need to give Connector an example of how we wanted to locate all of the assets and then still apply a preview to it. So what we do is we browse assets. I'm going to browse one asset for now. That's all you need to do. I'm going to go into the max file. I'm going to select one of them. I'm going to click the open button. Browse preview file. Let's select the preview that goes with that exact one, which is this guy right over there. Click the open button and that's it. Now of course you can go into asset types. You can go into preview types, which are images, and you can choose however you want to do it. Process assets in selected folder and subfolders. This is my option. I want it all to be because I've already organized the folders inside Windows, and therefore the folder inside Connector is correct. Previews are located in the parent folder. Existing preview mode, you can keep that mode, remove or ignore. Generally speaking, the default settings here work perfectly. I'm going to click process. 1, 2, 3, click. See details. It says here, previews assigned to process assets 4. Let's click the OK button quickly and see what actually happened. So looking over here, let's have a look. JPEG, 3D Max. So it automatically added this preview to this asset. This one did not work, and that is because of the naming convention. Had the name been identical, it would have automatically picked it up. This one did not work, again, because this one's got an extra word in it. This one did work. So if you've labeled all of your previews and your max files identical to one another, then it will work, auto assign everything. Now I've got some folders that have, let's say, 1,000 assets in, and I've got 1,000 previews for all of them. As long as they are labeled identical to the max file, the auto assign preview will work like a charm. Next underneath we got tags from keywords. Now if you remember in the beginning I was mentioning that some studios will take photographs and actually store keywords or metadata keywords inside all of their photography and their images. We can actually use Connector to pick up all of those keywords and assign tags to them. So really awesome to use if you are running a studio like that. Find duplicate assets is exactly what it does. It'll find everything that is a duplicate for you. Export catalog is one of my favorite concepts to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside here and I only want to see the actual previews. So I held in control, clicked, only see the filter images. I'm going to go to Tools, Export Catalog. Catalog name, let's call it 3D Sky, that's fine. You can of course relabel it, enable it. I'm going to click the Export button, select where I'd like to do this. This root folder is fine. Click the Save button. Give it a few seconds depending how big it is, and now we have an awesome PDF of the actual previews. So this is really useful if you ever want to create a catalog for yourself, or you want to share it on a server to a client or even your team where they can just scroll through and have a look. Let's close that. Next, we have the previews generation queue, which we have discussed. This is obviously where you can get all of your previews. Next, we have the process manager, which we discussed. Workspace backup. So if you want to save and back up your workspace, remember, if you're using your connector and you've added tags and subsets and all your directories, you don't want to lose all that work. So it's always good to have a backup of that. Validate current workspace is really good if your workspace has become corrupted. Remove missing assets will do exactly that. It'll remove everything that is missing. Make sure that it is missing and you don't need it, because if you remove it and it was something that you needed, it is gone. Okay, and that is it for actually working with connector. We've learned how to organize our folders, create previews, grab tags, descriptions, star things, color icons. Everything has actually been created now inside connector. And now the fun actually begins, because now what we're going to do is we're actually going to use connector with 3D Max, which is really, really awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a brand new Max and I'm going to show you how amazing this is going to be. Okay, so what I've got my Max open and I've got my connector open. So what we need to do is actually use connector inside Max, which is going to be awesome. So first thing is first, let's say that one of these objects you want inside your Max. Now remember, the way to install connector inside your actual Max is by simply clicking and dragging. So let's say we want this object here inside our scene. I'm going to click on the object. Now remember, we've already attached the custom preview, so I know what this chair is. I'm going to click, drag, and let go. And as I let go, this menu appears. This is the first time you're using the new version of Connector Script with 3D Max. Have everything ticked. It's going to make things a lot easier because it's going to automatically add quad menus to us. I'm going to click the OK button, let go, and then once it's installed, this menu appears now. So it's as simple as clicking and dragging and letting go. So the first option is merge and place. Let's do that. As I click on that, I am now able to actually place the object inside Max. So that's really awesome. Click once, have a look. As many times as I click, it's actually going to allow me to keep placing objects. The object is instant, which is awesome. And have a look here. If I press the control key, it's actually rotating about 45 degrees. So that's really useful when you're populating, let's say, a dining room table. So you can click, control, remember, just click the control key once and let go. So click once, click, click, click. Right click to deactivate that, and you'll notice that all of them are instances of one another. Click and drag and delete. Click drag again. We got merge and place as an XREF object, which is self-explanatory. We can place it as a proxy. Now if I place it as a proxy, it's going to give me the options of number one, auto detect from the current renderer. So do you want it as a render proxy of Corona? Yes. In the merged assets folder, meaning where you're going to save it, you can even choose a naming pattern. So you can add the name, the asset name, and even an object name to it. So I'm going to click cancel. I don't want to make a proxy of this. Click drag one more time. Open file will open the actual file as opposed to merging it into the new Max scene. Max merge dialog box. If I click on this, it's the same dialog box that we get if we've clicked it from Windows and dragged it in here. So this is really useful if it's multiple assets in one file. So this is really useful. Let's close that. Click drag again. We've got the use materials. Now we can choose a material to load. We can load all the materials in the compact material editor, or the slate editor as the current view, or the slate editor as a new view, and then load as a material library. So let's have a look here. I'm going to open up the material library. Now this is my slate material library right over here. Click, drag, let go, use material. I'm going to load it in the material slate editor as the current view. As I click on there, there is my material, which is awesome, and you can see view number one. Had I done the second option, so click, drag, use material, in a new view, have a look at the top, it's made a new view named after the actual material, and there it is there. Really awesome feature. Click, drag, let go, use materials. Now we can load it in the compact material editor. I've just shown you the slate material editor, and then we can load it as a material library. So as I do that, 1, 2, 3, it says click open. There we go, temporary library, and we actually have that material here, which means we can obviously save it or add it to another library. So let's close this, click drag, and let's use the first option, use materials. Choose materials to load. Clicking this will now load all the materials If there were multiple materials, I could select the one I wanted as opposed to importing everything at once. So again, very, very handy to do that. Let's click the back because I don't want to do anything, and just simply click cancel. And one small trick, if I click here and holding the control key and click and drag and let go, it just places it with no menu. So if you want to fast track that, you want to just merge it in there, holding control, click drag, and then you've got no menu. So let's right click to deactivate that. So now you can start seeing the awesomeness of this actual feature. I'm going to click merge in place quickly, and I'm going to show you another cool trick. Let's say this is the chair that we imported, but our client actually tells us they want something different. So click on this object right over there. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say locate asset to find out where this is. And now this is the chair that my client wants. If I click and drag this over an object and let go, it says merge in place. Merge in place as xref, as proxy, but now we've got three new options. It says replace target, gives you the name of it. I'm going to select that object right over there, 1, 2, 3, click. And just like that, you'll see that this menu appears, connector line, everything looks good. Clicking the OK button, and it actually replaced that object for me. It is amazing. So it deleted the object and replaced it in the same position. Click, and I'm happy with that. So now this is from connector to max. There are other things that we can do now from max to connector. Let's do a couple of examples. So what I'm going to do is, let's select this and delete this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a file that I've prepared for us. So here we go. So I've got a new chair and I want to add this to connector. So what I can do is I can select the object, I can right click. Now the quad menu that was automatically installed is over here. We have add assets to connector, manage external files, connector preference, and update asset in connector. Let's start at the top. Add asset or assets to connector. As I click on that, it's going to ask me, do I want to add the scene as a 3D asset? Do I want to add the new 3D asset from selection? I can add a selected material slot. I can add all materials from the editor. I can add materials from selection, and I can add materials from scene. So all of these are self-explanatory and they all work the same way. I can update the asset options. So if I've made a change to this asset and I want to update it, I can update that. Now what I want to do is add new 3D asset from selection. So I'm going to click on that. I get a menu. Let's go through it. The asset name. Now I know this is called the Flynn chair. So I'm going to do that. Do I want to immediately add tags to it? So if I click on tags, it's going to ask me where. I know that I want to add it to chair. I'm happy with that. Do I want to add a description? Where do I want to save it in? So if I click on this menu right over here, I'd like to save it inside my 3D models, okay? And really important is that I want to create a subfolder with the asset's name, because for now it's going to do it in the root folder of 3D models. That's not what I want. If I click on this option here, have a look right over there, it's going to create a new folder called Flynn Chair, which is amazing. Let's close that. Preview type, I can grab a preview straight from the viewport, or I can do any of the options that we've already gone through. For now, grab from viewport is perfect with me. If I click the advanced feature, it's now allowing me to copy it in another folder, create a subfolder with name and asset in a nested folder. All of these I'm going to leave as default. I'm happy with the way that it goes. In the settings tab, again, there's a lot of features here. I use all of the default features and it works perfectly for me. So let's do it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add. We're going to wait for it. So what it's doing is it's centered everything to the center of max very quickly, saved the file, collected the assets, created the folder, added everything in. So let's press F and go to Flynn and 1, 2, 3, click. There we have it. Now have a look. There is the preview that it created. It's already hidden it for us. This is the max file. So remember what we did. We chose a viewport image as the actual preview. And we have the two textures. So we added everything nice and neatly directly from Max all the way into connector. Selecting the object inside Max, if I right click and said add assets to connector, we can, as I mentioned earlier, add selected material editor slot. So whatever is in the material slot you can save. Whatever is in the editor, whatever materials from this selection. So if I wanted to save the fabric and the wood, I can do that. Otherwise, add materials from the actual scene. If I come in here and right click and say manage external files, we'll see the textures that are associated with this asset. Right click again, we got connector preferences. Now, merge and place settings, if you dive into this, you can actually control how you merge certain things in. For example, any file that contains lights and cameras, you can unignore those. So if all your assets have cameras and lights in and you don't want to import those every single time, you only want the asset, you can actually use these menus to determine what you want to ignore and not ignore. And then all these settings here, personally speaking, work perfectly as the default value, and they work perfectly. So as you can see, very, very awesome. The very last thing is just to see this personal tab over here. So if I click on this, the last used workspace is telling us where the workspace is. We can move it. Teamwork on connector, obviously we're not doing that. Activate existing local workspace, we're not doing that. And create new local workspace. If you want, you can create a new workspace from scratch. And guess what? That is it. We have learned connector from start to finish. We've covered everything that you need to know in one YouTube tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I really hope you found something really useful. If you did, please hit that like, hit subscribe. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have anything to comment on, let me know. Maybe you guys got an error or two. I'd love to hear it. I'll definitely do my best to try sort it out and help you and figure out what's going on. This app is really amazing. It'll definitely speed up your process of working inside 3ds Max. So one last thought, if you guys are looking for any 3D Max course or Corona course, have a look at the link below. VizCourse is my online school that I've created that's obviously for the ArcViz industry. It is going to teach you everything that you need to know for 3D Max, everything you need to know for Corona, and I have a lot more courses planned from Forest Pack to Railclone, the Unreal Engine, everything ArcViz related. I'm going to start creating some awesome tutorials. Until next time guys, I'll catch you later.